All right, we are back with episode number 11, Area 519 Talks. I am here with a pretty interesting fella, Colin Brown. That's right, yeah. I wasn't sure what your last name was, actually. I just found that out the other day. Colin is an artist, not your typical artist of what... he doesn't make art with a paintbrush, or he doesn't make music. You don't make music, do you?
Not very well.
No. Colin is a chainsaw carver. So he basically takes a raw piece of wood, like a log, and gets out his chainsaws and turns it into pretty crazy shit, actually. So just tell me a little bit about your carving and how you got into it.
So I started actually as a more conventional artist. I just like making shit when I was younger, and
what do you mean making shit? What do you mean conventional artist?
Well, drawing and I don't know, just constructing things, like anything, like
making a bong out of a birdhouse.
Done that, yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
No, how can I say? Whatever, anything. Sandcastles, just literally making things is what I enjoyed. And I went to so I have a university degree in fine art.
Okay.
Which is conventional,
Okay.
Drawing and painting and printmaking was my...
Okay, I didn't know any. I just thought you were just this is all new to me too. So.
Yeah.
So you actually are into other sorts of art as well.
Yeah. But for sure, chainsaw carving is my go-to now.
Okay, so how'd you get into that?
So I ended up going out to Halifax for my Bachelor of Fine Art, and I got into printmaking, which is... really facility based. Like, you gotta have presses and acid baths and big limestones and there was just once I finished school, there's just none of that around the area I lived, and I still felt the need to create stuff, so I took a chisel carving class at the art museum in London, where I was at the time. And the lady that instructed that class could see how impatient I was with the chisels.
A little too slow going.
So she recommended that I try a chainsaw. And she actually had a chainsaw carver coming from the Muskoka area down to just teach a few of her friends about it. And so I tagged along, and he had an extra saw that he had won in a competition that he didn't need, so I bought that off him, and I just started carving, and it grew from there. So,
what was your first carving that you ever did?
So the first one would have been the first chainsaw carving would have been that weekend, and I just a little 6-inch cedar post. Like a fence post, and I just made a little owl, and it was horrific.
Well, for your first time,
yeah.
Right? Now, I've asked you this question before, but I'm going to ask you again. Like, some artists, like if they're painting, or like my sister, actually, she does pottery.
Yeah.
So she has like with the wheel, and my
spinning,
sister does like phenomenal pottery work, right? But a lot of the time the artist can actually see what it is, like see the creation within the ball of clay or with an empty canvas. They can kind of see what it is already that they create. So when you get like a cedar post or a log, like just a log that you haven't touched yet, like do you see that carving, that creation inside of that, or like how do you go about taking a log in creating that into, say, like a bear, which I know you've done a few.
Yeah. So a lot of times I don't have the option. So it's I get a commission. So and so wants a bear, or they
Right.
want an owl, or whatever.
In a specific pose or whatever. Okay.
And so or a lot of times dogs.
Okay.
If a dog dies or something, people
Right.
get like a memorial.
Okay.
And so I'll get pictures from them and see what they want and pick an appropriately sized log. But it's not that I'm seeing that in. It's just I know I can fit it.
Okay.
And then in terms of creating stuff for stores, like bears are a staple because they sell, and so I'll just put bears in anything.
Right.
But the odd time I try and push my boundaries, kind of like professional development, I guess. And I'll pick something. I'll either pick something that I know I want to make, and I'll select a log from it, or the odd time I come across interesting logs, and they kind of get set aside because they're not standard,
right.
They're not easy to work with. And so when I set them aside, then I can see them every day, and I can
right.
look and think, and sometimes I see shapes in them. So like an example would be, I was at Derby Dave's wood store there, and was waiting on him because we had something that I forget now to do.
Right.
And there was just this big poplar log with about 4 or 5 feet on its side.
Okay.
I was sitting in my truck waiting, and I seen the profile of what looked to me like a Tyrannosaurus Rex head. So I just grabbed my saw and I started carving it, and I never, unfortunately, finished it. But
okay.
But a lot of people were very interested in it. Nobody bought it, unfortunately.
Right.
But
so you did not finish it?
No, I don't even know if it's still there. Or
okay.
What?
So you basically, you had this log.
But it was just a moment, right? Like, it was
inspiration.
It was like, hey, I see this. I got some time to kill because I'm waiting on Dave, and
right.
I'm just gonna, start shaping it, start making what I see, and it was looking good.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I didn't finish it, but ran out of time and had other things going on, so that's okay. I will make another one in the future.
So you do basically, you had a vision of some sort, like you say, kind of looking at it like, hey, I see like a T-Rex in there or whatever.
Yeah. So I have a few months every year, like January, February, March, that are slow, because there's a Christmas rush. Chainsaw carving's a thing in the summer. You're doing shows, you're making stuff, like people have it on their mind, cottagers and stuff like that. So that's when they're active in pursuing it. So in those winter months, I have a space where I can explore things that interest me more than just the profession or whatever you would call that. So I'll, throughout the year, I'll lie in bed at night thinking about, like, wouldn't that be cool? Or
yeah, for sure.
And looking at images and stuff like that. So I reserve kind of those months to give myself some time to work on something that I've never worked on before, or something that really interests me. To keep it fresh, because I don't really want to make the same thing all the time, and to also develop, because if you get stuck in a pattern, then all of a sudden that's all you know how to do.
Yeah, that's basically, you just explained 95% of people's how they live life.
COVID's wrecking that, eh?
Well, it's like you get stuck in a pattern of life, and but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, I understand. So, but before you start a carving, like, do you sketch something out on paper? Like, how do you know? Like, I'm not an artist.
Yeah.
I used to sketch and stuff. Excuse me. Like back in high school, but And that's another thing that I think we've talked about before, like with with your carving versus say like painting or drawing, where you're taking a blank canvas or something and you're adding paint, you're adding colors, you're adding this, and you're adding something to create art, whereas you're taking something and you're removing product to create art.
Yeah, it's the opposite, and it did take.
Because
I wouldn't even say I fully grasped it yet. Like it takes. You go till you think you're done, and then you go about 10, 15, 20% further. I'm still working on that.
Right.
And that's what looks good. Because when you're so, when you remove too much wood, you're kind of boned.
Yeah, you're done.
Like, or unless you're gonna glue stuff back on, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, because once you carve in there, and that's just once you're in there with the saw, that just turns to sawdust. And if you've gone too far and you've taken too much product out, you've basically screwed yourself, or you're looking for another idea with what. With what
put something different in it or whatever. So you take it to where you think you're done, and then you push it a little further, because you're always so conscious of not taking too much.
Right.
And in that process, you get caught up, and it ends up too bulky. Really, like it's not right, but you're kind of scared to keep going on it. Okay. And so it's there's a process of learning, yourself and your technique, and of course practicing the different figures and shapes and stuff like that, and learning the tools and whatever. But so you take it to where you think you're done, you go a little further, and sometimes that's not even enough, but like I am, in my experience, I'm certainly more critical than any of my customers. So if I get it to a point where I think it looks good, they're always happy.
Right. Now, I don't know anything about saws, but you want to talk about, some of my listeners may know about saws and stuff. Like, what kind of chainsaw do you use? Obviously, you're not using something with like a 24-inch bar on it. Like I've seen like your saws that you use. I think they're like steel.
Yeah.
Like little tiny. Just talk about what kind of types of saws you use.
So I'm. You can't have enough saws doing this kind of thing.
So you don't have one. You use multiple.
So you talk about a 24-inch bar. A 24-inch bar is excellent for, if you have a log that's 4 or 5 feet in diameter, well then you want to start with a big saw.
Oh, okay.
To get rid of the excess. So that's generally just a stock saw.
Right.
And you're just cutting off big hunks of tree. And I would say I'm just now, after about my 4th or 5th year, I don't even remember, starting to learn about the saws, because I've never been very mechanical. I blew up a shit ton of saws when I first started just abusing them.
Okay.
Not sharpening my chains correctly, just not cleaning them out, not running the right gas, you name it, I fucked it up.
But you learn from it. Yeah. Trial and error.
But so what I'm currently running is I have a 261 with an 18-inch bar, which I'd like to add a larger saw now.
Okay.
And then I have a 201, which is an arborist saw that still makes. And then a 193, which is a carving saw, and a 151. And on the 201, I run a 12-inch quarter-pitch chain. So that's a pretty particular carving chain. It's got a different sprocket. It comes to what's called a dime tip, which is a narrow tip.
I was gonna actually bring that up. I've seen some of your saws have a taper or some sort of a different tip on the bar.
It really won't kick. It's the thing. You can do whatever you want with it. You can plunge it in. You can make curves, all that.
Yeah, it kind of almost looks like what you would use for like the more delicate finessing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
precise
then,
cutting and
I have a detail saw. That's the 151. It's got a 9-inch bar, also dime tip, but it comes a little bit narrower. It comes from Japan.
okay.
Surprisingly, carving is big in Japan. Really big.
The Asians are into a lot of weird. A lot they're into a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah.
Eating bats too, or something like that. I don't really know much about that,
but yeah, and you can go smaller from there. I don't personally have it, but you can get 6-inch bars, like
right.
tiny shit, and it's great because with a 6-inch bar you can carve like right in front of your face. You can really see.
Right.
You don't have to worry about kickback or anything like that. Like the chainsaw is the safest tool that I use.
Okay. Well, what other tools do you use then?
So I use well, that was kind of part of the learning curve too, and I talk about taking the wood far enough to make it look
right
relatively realistic. So the chainsaw is the best tool because it removes material the fastest.
Right.
Once you learn how to control it. So when I started, I was switching to like an angle grinder and a die grinder too soon, and you can't remove enough material. And but I still use those tools: Dremel, chisel sometimes, flap sanders, file sander, which is like a belt sander, but like a 1/2 inch thick.
Right.
And that's just mostly palm sander, just for finishing, sanding up, finishing. Once you've got the chainsaw work, doing details like noses and eyes and stuff that's pretty difficult with a chainsaw.
What's your favorite carving that you've ever done? If you could pick one that stands out the most.
Generally, by the time I finish them, I hate everything that I ever did. I get it to the point where I feel comfortable with it, and I'm like, fuck this. Like, I just want to start something new. But if I had to answer that question, I just did an owl commission, and the commissionee, is that a word? Or
the buyer?
The buyer.
Yeah.
Customer.
The customer requested an extra amount of detail, told me to take my time, compensate it, airbrush it, which is the first time I've airbrushed anything.
Okay.
So I'd say that's my favorite because I really got to push that. Like I had sort of free reign in terms of my time, money. So it's just a great horned owl, but big.
Like how big?
6. The carving itself is 6 feet tall.
Oh, okay. That's
and about 20 inches in diameter. But the owl is proportionate, of course.
Right.
Not the whole 6 feet.
Yeah.
It's perched on a stump, which I carved out. And,
yeah. Now, how long did that take? Obviously, you didn't just do it all in one crack.
Yeah.
It was probably throughout a span of weeks, maybe. I don't know.
Carving it's fast, like with the chainsaws. A little slower than normal because I was just referring back to images so much, which I don't normally do. I normally just go freehand.
Right.
But I'd say like in 16 hours or something to do it with the chainsaw.
Okay.
Because this carving was going inside, I put it by the wood stove because I had to bring down the moisture level in it, and it split all the hell like a wood log will do.
Right.
So I spent probably another 16 hours filling the splits, which it was a cedar carving, so you use cedar shake to do it, and sand it, and then maybe about 10 hours painting it or so.
Okay, so
in around 40 hours.
Okay, so 40 hours. Now, this is none of my business, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Now, what did you sell that for?
So that commission was sold at 2,200.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, like you're not getting rich doing this. Like at 40 hours at $2,200, like you're not. But it's about the passion.
That's right.
Like
So
you love doing it.
that's good money for the hours in
Yeah.
comparison to like the other jobs I've done, like masonry. You know, like I'd work a 44-hour week and bring home $700.
Yeah.
But those commissions don't come around all the time.
Yeah.
You got to get yourself through the winter. You got to buy your tools and your logs and source all that stuff. So it you got to charge not just for your hours, but for your life.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a question I just thought of when you were talking about with the wood split and stuff. What is the best type of wood, if there is, the best type of wood to carve with, and how do you go about dealing with splitting and stuff like that?
Right. So I made a move. I made a move from London to Tobermory, and the
What's your area code?
I don't actually know.
Is it 519?
I don't know.
Stop the podcast.
I have a cell phone. I have a cell phone and it's 226 actually, because I was late on the 519.
Anyway.
So the wood in Tobermory is generally pine, spruce, cedar. I drop spruce because it's very sappy, which causes trouble. Try and get just pine and cedar, which is great. Softwood, it works fast versus hardwood because it's softer.
Right.
Less maintenance on saws because you don't have to sharpen your chain as much. And they're both good outside. Most people know that outdoor furniture is generally cedar, pressure treated, or pine. When I was in London, I wasn't buying logs at that point. I was just chasing them.
Okay.
So following hydro trucks around.
I was just gonna say hydro guys. Yeah.
Following hydro, and they had a crew that cut the trees, and then they had a crew that came 2-3 days later to pick them up.
Right.
So you'd just follow them around. You'd find that gap, and you could load your truck up. And it's also
that'd be mostly hardwood.
Yeah,
like
and around London, maple, oak, walnut, cherry, those kind of woods.
Right.
So the nice thing about hardwood is it'll hold more amount of detail because it won't fur. The saw won't fur it as much.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, yeah.
But you give up a lot in the splitting because the hardwood will split worse, and time because it takes longer. You
right, because it's harder wood.
So honestly, I work in any wood.
Okay.
Somebody's got an ash tree, an oak tree, a cherry tree, a maple tree, I'll carve it.
Right.
But for the wood that I purchase, I buy now pine and cedar.
Pine and cedar.
And there's a bit of a trick to carving it, letting it dry enough that it's not soaking wet, that it'll take a stain, that it'll take a burn. But then getting your varnish on it soon enough that it slows the drying process, which helps the splitting from being so bad.
Okay. Now, a few minutes ago you were talking about with some of the softwood where like it furs or whatever when you're carving it.
Yeah.
You actually, I don't think I've ever seen you do it, but I think you burn that off or whatever, you torch it or something?
Yeah, so it'll leave the saw will leave little, it's basically throwing chips, but a bunch will stay just stuck by a strand or two.
Yeah.
So carving, and it's annoying when you go to finish.
Right.
So yeah, I have tagger torch?
Big
on propane, tag, torch, whatever. And I hit it with that, and what that basically does is those little strands burn off without really hurting the piece of wood.
Right.
And then if I want it burnt, I'll leave it, or sometimes I brush it in, or I'll go back and sand that all out again.
Right.
But yeah, I use a torch to get rid of the also sort of evaporates any sap that's on the surface or burns off, not evaporate.
It's kind of like when you, I've done this, we did this when we were teenagers, like a sock. You get the little balls or whatever on the sock, and you take a lighter, and then the flame would actually go and
like
burn all, burn the lint off or whatever. Yeah,
same, exact same.
All right, cool. Yeah. So and then some customers, like, you paint them, like you said, you got into airbrushing.
Yeah. So that owl was my first attempt at airbrushing.
And how did that pan out? I've never airbrushed. I paint for a living, but I've never airbrushed.
There's a learning curve for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
for sure.
I guess I had not direct experience, but some experience with my artistic background in terms of like laying down colors and understanding how they're gonna overlap and mix and stuff like that.
Color palette.
But actually getting the feel of the airbrush was difficult. Like the pressure to put on the button and like where you hold it, like. So yeah, that took a bit, and I could do it much quicker if I did it again. I fiddled with it a lot. I went over spots. I sanded off spots. I fiddled with it. So, but it created a. It was the first time I've ever done anything with that much detail. Like from carving to putting in like fine feather lines with a little paintbrush and airbrushing over and blending it all in, and that was it was a neat experience. It was I'm definitely going to do it again for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just forgot the next question I was going to ask. Shit, I think it was a good one too. I'm blowing this right now. Totally had my next question lined up. When you get to be my age, you get little brain farts. But what else? Like, I just killed myself right now. I just lost my whole train of thought. Let's keep talking about your carving for a minute. I'll get back to this. Oh, I know what it was. I know.
Okay, good, because I was on the spot. Fuck.
I was just like, sorry. What other, like, were you inspired by other people that carve, and did you learn from other carvers, or did you completely take this on, like, completely self-taught? That was my question.
No. So I'm gonna kind of go broad on this.
Okay.
The part of what I loved about printmaking when I was in university doing it is it was very communal. So there was 10, 15 students, 3 printing presses.
Right.
So every student needed that. So you had to schedule the time, if somebody was behind or needed help, like you were helping them do their stuff, they would help you do your stuff, and it made everybody knew everybody very well. It was tight knit. Everybody had everybody's back,
Right.
Everybody's gunning for everybody. So I like that. Whereas like painting or drawing, you're kind of in your own little corner.
Right.
You don't, unless you can make an effort. But if you don't make an effort, like you're not seeing it. There's no community there. You're just doing your thing. And some people like that. But I'm a little more outgoing than that. So carving is nice because there's a tight-knit community. Originally, it was in Ontario, and then, but everybody helps everybody, like I've got people that I've met on Facebook or through friends, and that will tell me what they know, give me ideas, whatever, just looking out for everybody else, which I really appreciate. So what's the question?
Like, were you inspired? Like, did you actually have somebody come along and kind of mentor you and should kind of?
So when I started, it was the guy that I haven't really talked to him since. I haven't come across him since, but he started me, and then I I was on my own for a little bit at that point.
Right. Was it that Kane guy?
Nope. I met him later.
Okay.
So then I did enough. I was starting to feel confident, even though my stuff looked like shit. At the time, I thought it looked cool. Yeah. And I was like, maybe I can sell this. And I was working for the beer store, actually, and I was driving 21 because that was my route, Highway 21. Right. And I'd seen Derby Dave's store at some point and stopped in and introduced myself and said, like, hey, like, I do this. Can I carve here? Or can I sell stuff here? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So Dave was a big help to me to get going. But then on top of that, once I got that, I got a little confidence. I moved out of London to a small place called Mount Bridges, and there just so happened to be a carver that lived down the street from me, who is Kane.
Okay, yeah, I've met him.
And he helped me out too. He said, hey, I got a show, why don't you tag along and carve with me? And then I started doing shows after that, and I started meeting more people, and everybody was so open and willing to help and share, like, you want to try a tool out that somebody else has, here, take it, So yeah, I've done it both on my own to start, and at times, like, now all the shows got canceled, so I'm not around other guys, just kind of in contact with them, but yeah, so a little bit of both, but mostly there's a community and everybody helps everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you involved? I actually, I don't remember, but did you carve or have anything to do with was it Salty or Salty?
Salty, yeah.
In Bayfield?
So another. How in depth can I go on this?
You can do whatever you want.
Another carver had started Salty.
Okay, it's all coming back. Yeah, okay.
Started Salty.
And he kind of shit the bed on it.
He completed it to what he thought it needed to be.
Okay, which wasn't to standard.
Township or whoever,
municipality,
the locals,
whatever. It wasn't far enough along for their approval.
Okay.
So I stepped in and finished it, which is a little bit weird. Finishing somebody else.
Yeah.
Hand talker. Somebody else's piece. So that was my involvement. I didn't carve. I wouldn't say that I carved it. I just polished it.
Polished it up. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do you have an email or a website or something that people can check you out at?
I do. Oh God, off the top of my head.
Kind of need to know.
cbrowncarvings@gmail.com, and I think there's an underscore between Brown and Carvings.
Well, there is or there isn't. What is it? All right, he's gonna go get his phone, figure out.
I'm gonna figure that out. Yeah.
If you guys are interested, like I've seen his carvings, and I'm sure you got pictures on your website. But
Absolutely.
If you're interested in chainsaw carvings and you're thinking about possibly purchasing one for the cottage or your front porch or whatever, we're gonna get his website here or whatever, so you can check. Do you have a website?
I have Instagram.
He's got Facebook.
It's colinbrowndesigns@gmail.com.
Okay.
And what I think I was saying was my Instagram, which is cbrown_carvings.
cbrown_carvings, and that's your Instagram?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, if you're interested in some carvings, just checking out, just see what his work looks like. Check him out on Instagram. And sorry, did you have a website again?
No, not yet.
What was that first one you said? Oh, that's just your email.
Email, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, check him out on Instagram. Like I said, I've seen a lot of his stuff, out at Derby Dave's shop, which is DL Creations, just south of Bayfield. If you're in the area, check that out too. But let's stray a little bit away from the carvings or whatever. Derby Dave says you're a sports guy. Said if I got you talking about hockey or
Sports,
something,
yeah.
a hockey
Sports
guy, you'd
sports, like, I
you'll run my
appreciate.
camera, you run my phone out of data.
Yeah, I appreciate all sports. So I'm a hockey guy.
Okay, so lockdown, no hockey going on. I think that we'd be pretty much like, if we were still in the season, like, we'd be probably close to like the tail end of the playoffs right now, would we not?
Yeah, coming up on June, end of May.
Yeah, so we'd be halfway through the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
So who's your team? I have no interest in talking about any other sports.
I believe.
Like, I'm not a hockey fan. I'm a Leaf fan.
Yeah, Toronto.
Been a Leaf fan since I think.
Yeah.
I've been a Leaf fan. Now, people that are my age.
What is your age?
Well, I'm going to tell you who the lineup was.
Okay.
When I first started watching hockey. When I first became a Toronto Maple Leaf. Now, I can't tell you the whole lineup, but I can tell you who the main guys were. And that's back in the mid 80s when they were terrible. They were terrible. But their goaltender was Ken Reggett.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that was Alan Bester. I think they had Mark Osborne, I believe, was one of their defensemen.
He played into the 90s.
And then Eddie Olczyk.
Yeah.
I think he was the captain. Al Iafrate.
Yeah.
Wendell Clark was still playing with them back then.
84 draft.
That's back. They were still playing at Maple Leaf Gardens. That was like before Air Canada Center.
I've seen a game there.
That's cool. I think Harold Ballard was still the owner of the team back then. Who else was on that lineup?
Darryl Sittler for sure.
No.
In the 80s, yeah. Got it.
No, I was like mid 80s when I first Boreas Alming. He was still on the lineup back then. But I got into Toronto Maple Leafs like 80. Okay, 80, 87, 88, because I got into hockey when the 88 Olympics were on. So in Calgary, and then the Calgary Flames won the cup that year in 1988.
89.
88-89 season.
Yeah.
So that's when I first got into, so late 80s.
So that's my favorite player, won his cup there, Doug Gilmour.
Dougie Gilmour. Yeah, he was he part of that team?
Yeah, and he wore 39.
Okay.
Instead of 93. I'm not really sure why he changed. If
I remember
39 was retired or what?
I don't know. I remember Mike Vernon. Was the goaltender for Calgary. And who was that? Lanny McDonald had the big bushy, the red mustache and shit. I remember that. Yeah, the 88, 89. Yeah, I remember the Olympics there. So, what are you doing for hockey right now? There's no hockey right now. So
what am I doing right now? It's just
basically you're doing what everybody else is doing.
Pulling my hair out.
Not watching
hockey, trying to read articles. Like my morning routine is to get up and
check out the scores, the stats, the
scores,
standings,
the articles, stuff like that. And like at the best times, the Leafs are overcovered for sure.
Right.
But right now, there's fucking nothing.
Well, there's nothing.
Yeah. So but they say they're gonna, sports are coming back.
Well, they're talking about whether this I don't think it's gonna happen. Like, by the time this shit,
I don't know, man. Baseball's a go, NASCAR's a go. Why the fuck no hockey?
Yeah, but I don't know. But they're talking that Toronto might be one of the places or cities or arenas that they will play hockey in.
Yeah, but
the
border's a problem. Because I was reading about that today. Is that Toronto might have to choose a home arena in the States.
Okay.
So all the Canadians, I guess, would. But I'll say this. If the season does not continue, I am more than certain that this was a Maple Leafs year.
It's
for
easy.
sure. Matthews was on fire. Fuck.
I think it's interesting last year with St. Louis, Blues Stanley Cup champions, that majority of the lineup were Canadian.
Oh,
There was just a few guys on the
Well, that's
lineup
why-
that were actually American, and let alone from St. Louis. But most of the guys were right here in Canada, you know, and our hometown boy Ryan O'Reilly just lives not too far from here. Actually, in the I think it was Dave, get out of the camera. Quit being needy.
Use my seat.
I think it was 2012 when they had the lockout.
Yeah.
I think it was because that's when I did my
second or third.
My last bodybuilding competition I did, I think it was in 2012. So that summer when I was training for that competition that I did that fall, I think that was right around the lockout. Anyway, the O'Reilly brothers, Cal and Ryan, were doing a lot of their training and stuff up at the Y in Goderich.
Yeah.
So I was doing my thing, you know, training for bodybuilding. And Cal and Ryan were always up at the Y training and so on and so forth, you know, doing their hockey stuff. And watching these guys, these two brothers, doing like their style of training geared, you know, towards hockey, I was just like, I don't like, how do you like, I couldn't do what they were doing. Like they'd be in the gym for 2 hours. Like I'm just sitting there just crushing heavy weight, you know, and doing some cardio, you know, workout strictly geared towards bodybuilding, and they were doing, you know, something completely different. But watching these guys do their thing, it was so incredible. And it was like, and then they go out onto the ice and then do drills for a couple hours.
Yeah, they're in good shape.
But their dad, Brian O'Reilly, he was running a hockey camp during like the summer, so he'd have a whole bunch of, you know, young guys, you know, probably gunning to get into
Futures.
you know, gunning to get into like, you know, OHL, AAA, you know, like Stratford, Culloden kind of
GMB,
whatever that shit is.
Just
but
live the dream.
yeah, but his like O'Reilly's dad, Brian, like he is a phenomenal like just trainer and coach and so on and so forth, and you know, and even if you talk to Ryan, you know, Stanley Cup champion, you know, MVP, like he'll give a lot of that credit just to, you know, how his dad, you know, trained him and all the drills and stuff that his dad put him through, you know, to make him into what he is today. But yeah, it was really, really cool watching these NHL guys, you know, training at the same gym I was. But yeah, that was interesting.
I can't imagine the amount of work they put in, because like my whole life was hockey until probably about 20.
Like, did you play hockey?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
What position did you play?
Goalie.
That was my favorite. I never played
a little
hockey.
Strange, you know. Goalies are always strange.
I never played hockey. My dad was an alcoholic, and you know, all the money went towards whiskey, so I never played hockey. I probably wouldn't have been any good at it anyway. But I always loved goalie. I used to collect.
Well, you're a smart guy. Goalie's obviously the best position.
I don't know what attracted me to goaltending. I really don't know what it was. There was just something about the goaltender position, you know, the cool gloves and the pads.
Oh yeah,
the cool
the expensive
mask.
equipment.
Yeah, but I always loved it. You know, even when we played street hockey, ball hockey, I always played goalie. I played rec hockey for a year or whatever back when I was in my late teens actually. We used to just like a bunch of people show up at the arena on a Thursday night, you know, you pay $5 or whatever, and yeah, me and my buddy Chris, who I've spoke a little bit out on the podcast before, he'd take one end, I'd take the other. Yeah, we were goalie.
Yeah.
And collecting hockey cards, it was always, you'd rip open a pack of hockey cards, stick the stick of gum in your mouth, and you'd fish through and try to find the goaltenders. And I still, to this day, have boxes of hockey cards that I collected from when I was a kid, and I got a big binder, back when you used to get the sheets, the little plastic sheets where you'd put the cards in.
Yeah.
I still got all the hockey cards all goaltenders from when I was a kid. I still got them now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably some good.
Yeah.
The best part about goalie
The
is
chicks.
No, I wouldn't say- in my experience, the chicks they're like the centerman.
Oh,
I
the
think,
center guy.
But the
yeah,
best part about goalie is you can win a fucking game on your own.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
It's like the only position, like unless you're Connor McDavid or something, you can win a game on its own
Yeah.
too. But it's the one position where you have the most control, or like you can also lose the game on your own.
Oh yeah, you can totally. You can totally blow it. But goaltender.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, a buddy of mine. I used to borrow his goalie equipment, like when I played the rec on whatever Thursday night or whatever it was, and he had a shitty set of pads. Like they were just the old leather pads, like Cooper or CCM or whatever.
yeah.
But he had the back then. I don't even know what the hell's popular. But he had like the Bryans,
Bryans,
like
they're coming back,
like
too.
the great big huge trapper, like that was the size of like a barrel, and like he had like the really cool gloves, and he had he was like one of the first guys that had like the cool mask.
Yeah.
Not like the helmet with
Not
the,
the helmet,
with the big cage, but the one piece. He had one of those, and I was just like, that is so awesome.
So, I didn't grow up in the era of the leather horsehair pads, right?
Yeah.
I was past that.
Yeah.
But my dad had a pair, and I wore them playing road hockey and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, was that ever good training? Like, they're so heavy.
Yeah, they're heavy.
Yeah.
And
But anyway, one day I decided I was gonna. I worked at a sports store, and they had old vintage
there's a whole
gear.
lot of stuff going on in the background here.
Oh, Dags is here.
That one got
And
away.
there's chickens. Can I have a beer, please? I got distracted.
Oh.
What?
Well, that just made shit interesting. We have
I could probably carve one of those. It'd be really easy. It's just like a ball.
we have baby chickens here at 519 Talks. And where did these come from?
The barn,
Outside.
And why did they come here?
because somebody thought it'd be a good idea.
Oh,
Could you pass me a beer, please?
yeah, sure.
Thank you. What's that? Oh yeah, I worked at a sports
So
store.
we're talking about, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they had just old vintage shit hung up on the wall.
Okay.
So I borrowed a pair of like early '80s gloves, and I had my dad's old '80s pads. Yeah, I wore it to just a men's league game. Or whatever. Like, my God, did the pucks ever hurt when you caught a puck? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine
Like
those
you're
guys that
catching
play
them
with a
off
mask
the-
and
yeah.
everything. Like, I get binged in the noggin, and it hurts now with a modern mask on.
Right.
I'm sleeping.
PETA guys are going to be all over us, Derby Dave.
I had nothing to do with this.
We're not hurting them.
No, we're not, but they are going to end up going to slaughter in 6 weeks.
Oh no, maybe they're egg.
No, these are broilers.
Wow.
Looks like they're
We
about.
will meet again.
Looks
then,
like they
guys.
probably just hatched out this morning or yesterday.
How big their feet are.
Today.
Oh, they got. It's so like how cute they are, and then how ugly they turn out.
How delicious they end up.
Yeah, they're pretty tasty, but
Yeah, you don't like that, do you?
well, they're.
Dave, he says shut up. Not delicious at all. He says
They're very cute.
he's a vegetarian.
Very, very cute. It's made the podcast a little interesting.
Threw us off.
One thing I did want to bring up, I watched this documentary on Netflix called The Ice Guardians.
Oh, fighting.
Yeah, like the enforcers. Did you watch? Have you seen that one?
No, but I'm opinionated on it for sure.
I actually had no idea until I actually watched that documentary on how big that actually was part of the game. I just thought, fights break out, whatever, some guy checks somebody or whatever. So that, whatever it turns out. I didn't actually know that these guys were actually brought up to fight. That was their job. Their job wasn't to put the puck in the net. Their job was to go out and kick somebody's ass.
Yeah.
Like
Sometimes
I had no idea that was part of then. That was part of the game. I think that it's not so much now.
No, it's gone. It's
Like,
gone. There's no pure fighter anymore.
Right.
There's guys that can fight and also play hockey, which ain't bad, but.
Hey,
but
you guys want to put these guys back in where they belong, please? They're actually pretty noisy.
Thank you.
But thank you. That was cute. My kids would have liked it. Yeah, but I didn't know that like a lot of these guys were brought up just to fight.
My thing is like I can understand in this day and age fighting, like fist to face fighting being taken out.
Right.
Like, I get it. I don't like it because to me that's part of hockey. But what I'm more concerned about is contact in general be taken out because of concussions mostly, which is a bad thing. But I mean, like, it's an occupational hazard, I guess. Like, you want to be a hockey player, you're probably gonna get banged in the noggin.
Yeah.
Well,
look at football. These linebackers and shit. Like these, like I said, I'm not a football guy, but some of these you see like some of these guys, and they're just getting the shit knocked out. I think I had heard that some of these the big linebackers and stuff, like they got like a 2-3 year window max, and they're done.
I think I heard or read somewhere that like the average NFL player has about 25 years knocked off his life.
Really?
From injury and stuff like that. He had an injury mostly. That's not credible.
Well, but let's just say that is that worth it? To have that many years taken off your life because
I don't know, man. You're doing something you really love and you're being well compensated.
$2 million a year.
Maybe you don't really love it, but like some do for sure.
I don't know. But yeah, these I was never partial to hockey fights. I always thought it was kind of, and I'm one of the few guys that you'll probably hear say this, but I just didn't see the point in it. Like,
so I didn't play very high level hockey. I played locally what's called junior C.
Right.
And that would be the lowest level of junior high level hockey that's available.
Right.
And I made the team in our first practice. Our coach played in the AHL at some point, Texas or something. Our first practice, first thing he did is he lined us all up against our teammates and made us fight and taught us how to do it because if you don't do it, like, and you get grabbed by the wrong guy, you gotta know what you're doing. But it can really change a game.
Oh, absolutely, like the momentum.
Yeah, the momentum.
Oh, absolutely.
You got a certain guy on the ice that has a reputation, like nobody's taking a run at your players, nobody's going after your goalie. Where you don't have that.
Yeah.
It's kind of open season, which is you see that now. There's more.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, let's look at Wayne Gretzky. Okay. That's back when they had the enforcers.
Yeah,
like he had like back in LA, like he had,
McSorley.
Yeah, and then he had Marty McSorley, and even back in Edmonton, I can't remember the names of the guys back, but they had their enforcers, and they protected him. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from Gretzky. He was a phenomenal hockey player, probably one of the greatest that ever lived or ever will live.
Right behind Doug Gilmour.
Right behind Doug Gilmour.
Number one.
But people, the opponent, nobody would touch him. They were terrified to take Gretzky into the corner and take, even if it was a clean hit, and take him out to get him off the puck. They knew that they were going to get their asses beat.
That's right.
If they even touched Gretzky,
Yeah,
which
wasn't
allowed
even-
Gretzky to have, free run of the ice, and that obviously contributed to many, many goals that he scored.
Like the positive I can take away from Corona and the NHL season being canceled is that the Sportsnet, TSN, whatever, they have nothing there. So they're airing all classic games.
Okay.
So you get like a window into the 80s or the 90s or whenever they play. And it's, having watched modern hockey a few months ago compared to watching those games over again,
It's a different game.
it's completely
different
different.
game.
It's insane.
It's faster.
It is. It's better in most ways.
I personally
But,
like the game better now. Not that I watch a lot of hockey, but there's just the skill level's higher, I think.
It is.
Like you're not like you watch old highlights from like when we first started talking about hockey, like back in the late 80s. Like you're seeing guys taking slap shots from the blue line and scoring a goal. That doesn't happen now.
No,
Like-
screen tip has to be.
Like the players, the caliber of player now versus then, it's different. It's a faster game. These players are trained. Like, okay, here's an example. When I was working in Quebec, I worked in Quebec for a few years, painting heavy aircraft, and I was also training for bodybuilding back then. And I used to go to a gym in Trois-Rivières, and everybody speaks French. And the majority of people in Trois-Rivières are all French speaking. And but I used to talk to a few guys that spoke English, and I got talking to one guy, and he spoke like perfect, like he spoke. Obviously, he spoke French, but when he spoke English, he didn't even have much of an accent.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like
Probably
where are you from? And he says, oh, I'm from Quebec, but I worked in the States for years back in the 70s. And I was like, oh, okay. I says, well, what'd you do? He says, oh, I played NHL hockey. I played for the Philadelphia Flyers. I was with the Philadelphia Flyers and won 3 Stanley Cups with Philly in the 70s. I'm like, no shit.
That's pretty cool.
And then he retired came back to Quebec and retired with Quebec Nordiques when they were still an NHL franchise before they became Colorado. And he said, yeah, I played with Philadelphia. And I can't remember what his name was, but his nickname, what everybody knew him as on the team, was the Moose. And he was an enforcer. He was one of those guys. That's what he was. He was a fighter.
I think
that's what his job
every
was.
player on Philly in the 70s.
That's
was a
right.
fucking enforcer.
He was part of Philadelphia's lineup when the entire team of Philadelphia was just an entire lineup of badasses that would kick your ass.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to play Philadelphia back then. Everybody was terrified to play Philadelphia because they knew they were going to get their asses
Wasn't
kicked.
it this? They had that Super Series and Russia played. The Russian national team played various NHL teams in Philadelphia. They left the arena. We're not even fucking playing you guys. Like,
What, Philly didn't want to play the Russians?
No, Russia left because Philly beat them up so bad.
Oh, they didn't want to
Yeah.
get beat up by
Yeah.
Philly. Yeah, so this guy, he was one of the enforcers. He was one of most of the team was. But so I actually went back to the hotel after, meeting him and him telling me who he was. And I went on YouTube and just typed in Philadelphia Flyers, whatever, the Moose. And yeah, it was just videos of him just kicking the shit out of people. Like he says, that's all we did. Now to get back to better trained athletes, so on and so forth, now than then. I asked him, I says, what was it like playing in the NHL back then? And he says, then a lot of the time we spent on the train, going from city to city, and they didn't fly a lot back then. Everything was you got on the train and you were on the train all night or whatever, going from city to city. And he told me that he says we get off the ice you're in the locker room, you're showering up, whatever, you're getting ready to get onto the train to go to the next city if you're playing a road game. He says, you were up all night drunk, and everybody was just drinking, and the whole team, half the team or whatever, whole team, half the team, and he was just drunk. He says he even played. He would get on the ice for a game, and half the team was half lit. They'd be in the locker rooms drinking. And drinking all night on the train,
That's
going
all
to the
like
next
junior
city.
C hockey.
It's like that doesn't.
There's no divide.
I don't
there.
think that shit happens now. Like, could you see Sidney
No,
Crosby?
not the NHL. No,
Sidney
no.
Crosby or Ovechkin or whoever these high caliber guys are now, like getting loaded before a game?
No.
It just doesn't happen now.
But you know what? Too, when, like, usually in real life, if you get into a fight, like, you don't see it coming.
No.
Right? So, those guys, though, they knew night in, night out, they were going to get their face beat in or beat somebody's face.
Yeah, yeah.
And, like, there's a, most of us probably drink.
Yeah,
yeah. So, that is a negative to it, I suppose. But
no, I never thought that. I was never partial to the fighting in hockey. I understand that it is what it is. It is part of the game to a certain degree, and there is a purpose for it.
I think
it does create a lot of momentum.
I think it got carried away.
Yeah.
It became a spectacle at some point. Yeah, which isn't good. There needs to be a balance. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's down. I don't know.
But any other last comments about anything? We're sitting at just over an hour now.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
I thought I was supposed to be part of this podcast.
I said we were going to do a double header.
Yeah, well, I'm not.
So, anyway,
Dave wants to come say something.
Anyway, just.
No, I don't want to say anything.
Anyway, this was episode 11, Area 519 Talks. Colin Brown. Like I said, we talked about earlier, if you're interested in checking out some of his work, whether to possibly purchase or just curious to see what stuff he's into, check out his Instagram. And until episode 12, we'll see you next time.